shifted in such a way that, this is kind of what you dream about, just a little house on Maui, and things are taken care of. And, I'm a simple dude, and it jives with me.
We now have utility scale contracts that are coming in cheaper than fossil fuels. And that at the multi-megawatt storage capacities is going to push the envelope, further, I think, in the residential space. I think the residential consumer market is like a really good one, but the commercial and utility scale stuff is really going to propel things forward.
Let's get everybody in the room. We got Maui Solar Guy sideways. We're going to have to fix that real quick, Eric.
It actually told me to do it in landscape.
Man,
There we go.
Riverside.
We're innovating. This is the new way to do podcasting.
This is the Solar Pulse podcast. We do innovative things around here. We say, Eric, get out of here. Kick him out. What's up, Ahmad? Sawalmeh, bro?
Yo. Yeah, nice to be here. Josh, nice to meet you. I've seen you around SolarCon the last couple of years. You're always looking so dapper.
I think I'm going to tone it down this year. I'm coming in jeans and a shirt. Too much energy to look good for everybody at SolarCon.
Yeah, man, keep it simple. I mean, I put on a collared shirt and I feel like I'm overdressed for this.
I was known for wearing like a white collared shirt on all of training set every single day. It was one of those, like, oh, it's easy, but just got so tiring. And sometimes I started wearing sweatshirts. I'm like, oh, this is a better life. I'm just going to wear nice, comfy shirts.
Yeah.
There we go.
Much better.
Looking good.
How we doing, fellas?
Yeah,
Awesome.
good. You?
Let me do
Doing
the introductions real quick so everybody knows who's here. So welcome everybody to the Solar Pulse podcast with Josh and Joe. We have an amazing episode this week. These guys are some of the smartest, most intelligent people in the solar industry, and they're both happen to be from Hawaii. So we're doing a special Hawaii-themed episode of the Solar Pulse podcast. We got Mr. Erik Thorbjornsen. I can't say his last name very well, but Mr. Maui Solar Guy is here. And then we got Ahmad Sawalmeh, who is solar franchises and much more. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Your last name, Eric, is Thorbjornsen. That's the mountain's full name, Thorbjornsen. You know?
Yeah, you got it. That was actually really good pronunciation. Maybe you're doing introductions next time.
Yeah, we should have switched that.
Who doesn't even know who Thorbjornsen is from the Game of Thrones or I don't know. Legend, absolute legend. Where is it from? Scandinavia or Iceland, I'm guessing.
Norway.
Gotcha. There we
Yep.
go.
You're in the neighborhood.
Are you 6'9" as well? 350
No,
pounds?
unfortunately, no. I got the runt of the litter.
Okay, fair enough.
So have you met Josh before, Mr. Maui Solar Guy, Eric?
No, I haven't. I tuned in a couple times just to see you guys, but never met. So a big aloha to Josh and Ahmad as well. I've never met Ahmad.
Yeah, man, it's a small island, but haven't crossed paths yet.
Better way of putting it.
Actually, Ahmad, I've known Ahmad for years now. Ahmad was actually my first ever live stream from the Solar Objections Facebook group. And that was 3 years ago, right, Ahmad?
Number one.
OG.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, after I did that, I was absolutely terrible. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what question to ask, what I was saying. And I said, let's do it. But Ahmad was so great on that. He went through every objection from the set to the close for like an hour straight, handling objections and tonality like just a master at his craft. And from then on, I said, all right, it doesn't matter how bad I am. As long as I get an amazing guest like Ahmad, I can do this every week. And I've been doing it ever since. So Ahmad, I really appreciate you being my first one ever, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's been cool to see how everything's evolving, how we're evolving within the industry, and really happy to be chopping it up with you guys. I moved to Maui 3 years ago, and that's rounding out 10 years total in the solar industry. And it's been really cool to capstone the last 10 years with 3 years in Hawaii, because I felt like brand new. I felt like I had so much to learn all over again.
There you go.
Absolutely love that. So we want to start off real quick so we get to know you guys and get the audience to know you guys, but not make the segment too long. So we like to call this segment called 5 Words or Less. That's where you'll have like a little da 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 5 words or less. But Josh, I'll let you take it away with the first one.
Let's do it. All right. So the game is 5 words or less. So you got to try to keep it under 5 words or less. I think we have like 100% failure rate on that rule so far. Yes. But yeah, we'll do some rapid fire, start things off, and then after this, we'll jump into some juicy stuff with your guys' experience in Hawaii and solar in general. First question, very, very simple. Let's just get to know a bit about you. 5 words or less. Describe your personality. Let's start with Ahmad.
Positive, stoic, and grounded.
Only
Okay,
needed
goes for
4.
There we go. And Thorbjornsen, the mountain. 5 words or less.
The mountain. I'm chill. I'm easy. I'm articulate. And I'm a winner.
There we go. Love it.
All right.
All right.
That tells us a lot more about you guys for sure. I appreciate that. All right. Second one. Ready, Ahmad? If you weren't selling solar, if you weren't in solar, what would you be doing? 5 words or less, Ahmad.
When I left the ski industry, I would have been stocking groceries.
All right. So that's
Yeah, simple work.
all right, Eric. What do you got?
What I was doing before the solar industry, I was on the floor of the stock exchange.
Really?
There you go.
Yeah, I was into stocks, bonds, all that good stuff.
From New York to Hawaii, huh?
Yeah, few stops in between.
Me too. I actually did that whole story too. From New York to Maui. I lived in Maui for a year. Maui's the place to be, huh?
Oh, it's a good spot. Where were you at?
This is years ago now, but it was Kahului by the airport.
Yeah,
Love it. Good stuff.
pretty
So
fun.
number 3, before we start jumping into some deeper content here, who's your biggest solar influence? Let's go, Mr. Erik, Maui Solar Guy first.
I've had some really good teachers along the way. I've been doing this 18 years now. And I think this is an industry that you never stop learning. I mean, I could rattle off, a dozen names who have impacted me over the years. Coming in, being new, having to introduce. Are we still doing the 5 words or less?
If you can. I like the extra
All
word.
right.
I'm enjoying it more.
Man, I got dozens. I couldn't even name one. Just different points in my career, different people have stepped up and really kind of shined a light on what I'm supposed to be doing. So I got names to rattle off, but the list is long.
Give us 1 or 2.
I had one of my early mentors was Dan Sullivan in San Diego. And I know Dan had a little rough patch, but he always treated me well. And, that was really kind of where I launched from. And I appreciate the dude.
There we go. And I'm at 5 words or less. Who's your biggest solar influence?
Andy Montney, rest in peace, the first solar business owner that I ever worked for.
Love it. Questione
I
number
want to know
4.
more about that story, Ahmad. Tell me more about him.
Yeah, man, he was a honey badger because honey badgers don't give up, and that was his motto. And he just he had a hard life. He came up doing some criminal activity. He turned his life around selling windows, and he brought his tenacity from selling windows over the phone into solar because he believed in solar. He just believed in doing something better with his time and energy. And he just like pervaded so much success and positivity through a sales office in 2013 when solar was brand new in Colorado. And he took some blows because of his tenacity as well. And he ended up, he didn't make it through the ringer of life, but the things that he taught still live inside of me. And so it's a touching story. And also, like rags to riches, like from nothing to 100 deals a month in like 18 months because of this radio ads and this crazy tenacity with sales and marketing. So I learned so much from him.
Radio ads. Oh,
Yeah.
I tried radio ads once. We took over the radio stream for a small town in Australia. Didn't get a single lead, but
I got no one.
I don't know. So I'm happy to be proven wrong, but we tried. It just was the worst marketing thing we've ever done. But maybe there's a way to do it better. I'm not sure. They sounded amazing. They sent us the audio clips of like them reading the script, and the radio host killed it. We gave them links like it was solarcompany.com/freedom. So go to solarcompany.com/freedom, freedom to drop your power bill, and it killed it. But then nothing came in. So I don't know. Maybe we got scammed or something. Not sure. Question number 4 then. Why are you in solar? I know we're keeping it real simple. We're doing 5 words or less because I'm sure we're gonna have a lot more wordy answers to questions that we got coming up.
Yeah, coming up soon.
Why are you in solar? Let's go Ahmed first.
I'm in solar because I believe in it. I like unplugging people from the matrix of the utility grid.
Ooh, I like that.
You're the Andrew Tate of solar.
That's right.
There we go. And Eric, why are you in solar?
No, I'll piggyback on Ahmed. It wasn't my first career choice, but when I landed and when solar came into my universe, it was there was really nothing else to do. It's the combination of helping people, helping the environment, and really just being able to go to sleep every night and feeling really good about what I'm contributing.
Do you see the difference between what you're doing in New York on the stock exchange and then for me, I was doing, selling sketchy products when I was younger. And then when I found solar, I realized, I can still apply proper sales strategy, but I can actually sleep at night. Did you find a similar thing? Because we know, the stock train, all that, sometimes it's a bit, it's a bit investing in the wrong things.
No, yeah. Of course. And it's like, and it was that, like I said, that wasn't the only stop. Like I sold mortgages for a while, and all of them, it was the same thing. It was like, I felt like I was benefiting myself and, I'd get some fat paychecks, but, I wasn't really contributing much. I was pushing papers around, getting signatures, collecting, bank statements. And yeah, I mean, it put bread on the table, but, as far as like what it did for my soul, it just wasn't there. Switching over to solar, it really became, it really lined up with who I am as a man and as a human. And it just was an easy transition.
Love it. Stuff.
Yes. A lot of us are in the same story. I'm going to go with the final one, Josh, because I'm already talking. So the last one for you guys, 5 words or less. Your ultimate career goal, Mr. Maui Solar Guy.
Man, I'm living it. I've been doing this a long time, and I think the early part of my career, it was all about, pumping as much through as I could. My work-life balance was terrible. And, now I'm at a point in my career where, I love what I do. I'm pretty much 100% referral. I train, I fly helicopters, I golf, I'm in the water, I'm hiking. Like my work-life balance has shifted in such a way that, this is kind of what you dream about, just a little house on Maui and things are taken care of. And, I'm a simple dude and it's It jives with me.
I got it then. I'm already living the dream. That's
Yeah,
what that is.
it's pretty close. Like, I feel bad sometimes. Just yeah, we got 5 words. Joe finally wins. I feel bad about it sometimes. Like, I feel when I really stop and take a look around at what I'm doing, I wouldn't really trade my life with anybody's. It's panned out pretty well.
Hell yeah. I think that's why I'm saying a lot of us are in this industry because of that. You can actually make money but feel good, like Josh was saying. Sleep at night. All right, Ahmad, what do you got? What's your ultimate career goal, buddy?
Ultimate career goal for solar:
Just you.
sell an
Your career goal.
eight-figure company.
Say it again.
Ahmed wins.
Sell an eight-figure company.
There you go. Practical.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right, Josh,
Stuff.
go take over.
Well, okay, 5 words or less done. 5 words in some questions, not the others. What I really liked the idea of getting you guys on when Joe told me to get you guys on because of your experience in the Hawaiian industry. So I come from the Australian industry, and there's some interesting correlations between the Australian and specifically the Hawaiian U.S. industry, in that Hawaii is much more advanced than the U.S. industry for several different reasons. I've never really had a good conversation with someone that has more than a few months experience in the Hawaiian industry, though. So I'm really interested to see how far advanced is it than the mainland market, if it is, in what ways. Because I think, for example, my experience in the Australian industry gives me a massively unfair advantage to see how solar industries expand in certain markets and the moves that are made and the solar coaster patterns, as they call it. First off, do you guys agree with me with that stereotype that the Hawaiian industry is much more mature than the mainland market?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are there some ways that some things aren't as mature, or is it just across the board? It's 5-10 years older.
I mean, Ahmad, if you don't mind, I'll just jump in on this. You know, our net metering ended 8 years ago. Just the same that happened in California in April. We had 24 hours. They pulled the plug. We got notification, don't sell anything. Tomorrow you had to sell, the equivalent of NEM 3. And, we made a ton of mistakes. We made so many mistakes along the way. But over the time, we've been doing this for 8 years now. Over time, we've just really dialed it in, and it's just a more articulate sale. And that's kind of what I've been preaching to a lot of people. The sale is so much more articulate than a NEM system. And just learning how to position certain things, learning how to talk about certain things, being up to date on the new technology, understanding how those technologies work. I would say that's so much more advanced than anywhere else in the United States. In regards to, is there something that we're regressed at? I was talking to a friend about this the other day. When I left the mainland, I mean, 10 years ago, and I came out here, there was no sales org and EPC thing. That really didn't exist. That model didn't exist. And, so it wasn't really until I jumped on these Facebook group pages that I even learned about it, that I even knew that it was out there. And that's such a different model than what has really been the mainstay out here. And I'm not going to say that's good or bad, and I'm not going to say we're ahead or behind in that category. I'm just saying that it's very new. It's starting to be introduced on a small basis. But if you want to say that we're pulled back or we're not as far ahead, I would definitely point towards that as a metric.
Right. Ahmad, you've been in a Hawaii market for 4 years, so that means that you got in 4 years after net metering was killed. Right? Is that correct? So it's 8 years ago that it was killed. So then,
Yeah.
Ahmad, you got into it before, after net metering was killed anyway. In Australia, net metering was killed between 2011 to 2013. I got into the market a year or two after that. So I'm in a similar situation and boat as you are. I went into the market and I just sold because we didn't know what net metering was. We didn't have anything taken away from us. So almost have an unfair advantage there because you make do with what you have. The Americans right now are going through extreme pain in the mainland because they saw what one-to-one was like and they could do lazy sales for years and years and years. Could you speak on the two differences there? You going into a Hawaiian market, they never had net metering, and then you seeing what, sales guys in California are going through right now. What has that experience been?
Yeah, I'm going to speak to that. And I also have an interesting perspective because I lived 5 years of selling net metering in Colorado and Texas. And so then like in between that time, I worked for an installer that had been installing for 27 years. And they were in the mountains of Colorado, and half of their clients were off grid because they were building cabins where there wasn't the grid to begin with. So that was like right in the middle of my journey. That was an intermediary step where I started learning a lot about energy storage. And like Eric was talking about, like it's more articulate. That's like one way to say it. You just have to know how to talk about a different dimension of energy, right? You're not talking about just a net metering, kilowatt hour dimension. That's like 1D, right? Like now you're talking about 3D or even 4D, because you're talking about the consumption of the home, the load, and the kilowatt hour consumption. And there's like so many different variables, right? And so like to get back to the question, I think that the opportunity for somebody to come in blind is great. Just like if you never sold solar before, you're coming into net metering blind, right? That's a whole conversation. Whether like the utility tariffs change or not, we should all know how to speak in all these different dimensions, because ultimately if the power goes out, that off-grid profile is something that everyone's going to want to understand. And what most people hate about solar is that if the power goes out, they don't have energy. You have like Enphase, like, oh yeah, 1 amp per inverter IQ8 plus, and that's going to keep your lights on with 16 amps when the power goes out. But like there's a huge deficit in knowledge base where people get dollar signs in their eyes to push a high ticket item. And I was one of them. I mean, my mentor, Andy, was one of them, coming from Windows into solar. But there's like a huge growing pain right now where there's a schism. There's like a separation between actually knowing what you're doing and, slinging leases and good leap loans. And so there's the pain of like the net metering conversation and people needing to get a bearing on things. But, like Eric said too, the legitimacy of what you have to know to be able to do solar out here with AC and DC and all the, the battery procurement and how much that adds to an installer liability. That's why there isn't EPC redline pricing out here, because it's so hard to run a business and pay taxes and have the overhead of what it costs to run a business in Hawaii. But that's been my biggest frustration, is coming from the mainland of having a $2.20 or a $2 or a $1.90 red line to Maui, where they're selling solar at $4.50 or $5 a watt without storage, without financing, and they're only paying out 15 cents a watt in commissions. Like that was the deal that I struck up with the first company that I encountered out here. And I took it just to get my foot in the door because I was doing other things for them as well. But I actually I converted their sales manager into a defect, because I was like, dude, let me show you how much you would be making if you were selling on the mainland at these prices. And it took him a couple of years, but he figured it out. Now he's in the power swing of things.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Interesting. So we're talking about net metering. Are there other things that you guys see? I have like a list that I've made of, okay, I went through all my years in the Australian industry and I said, what is going to happen? what have you guys seen other than net metering happen in the Hawaiian market that hasn't happened in the mainland market?
Well, I mean, the program, when they pulled the rug on NEM in October 2015, they released a new program, right? And it essentially paid 50% buyback. Since that time, there's been about 6 other programs released, and they're all changing. They all take a little more value away from the sale. It's a little less buyback. One of the common programs now is just you're not compensated. You're not even allowed to send energy back to the grid. It's basically like a closed loop system. You're not off grid. You're still grid tied, but you're staying. There's no import. There's no export. And so I think, and this is what I've been saying to California as well, is like, adaptability is really the word of the day, and it's how quickly you can adapt, because just when people are going to start getting accustomed to net metering 3, something's going to change, because the utilities don't really understand how it all fits together either. That's what happened out here. Hawaiian Electric, when they first rolled out the program, it was beta. Like, we're just trying to figure it out. And so then when they realize, well, hey, we have saturated circuits here and we have non-saturated circuits here, it's just like, that's why things rotate and change, and not being able to adapt. Like, I've been in solar in Hawaii since the change happened, and I've seen a lot of people leave. Like, it's, and I've kind of called that out in California as well. We're going to see a big shakeout based on the same playbook that happened out here. It's just, if you want to call it sales, or if you want to call it ticket taking, what's happening in a lot of the United States, it's a lease. It's the talk tracks are so simple, right? And if you can't make those adjustments, and if you can't adapt, and if you can't want to learn, a new source of education, you're just going to get left behind. And I've seen it here. It's going to happen in other, when everyone else starts dropping NEM as well. And, it's just, we have to continue to try to get better, continue to try to learn new skill sets, understand things that we hadn't understood before.
Speaking of new skill sets, learning about battery technology has been on the forefront in Hawaii because of the need of batteries, right? So I think you guys would be perfect people to ask about the evolution of the battery technology and where we are right now. So Ahmad, I know you got to Hawaii, a few years ago, but you've seen it from probably not really using it much on the mainland until like being all in over there. How has it, evolved, and what does it look like today, the technology with batteries, and is it still advancing as fast as it was?
There's definitely a lot of advancements in energy being put into, different chemistry profiles. For now, lithium iron phosphate is taking the lion's share of what mainstream manufacturing is putting out. I think we're going to see huge advancements in, graphene supercapacitors and nanocell batteries.
Wow.
There's publications from major companies like 3M. You can look up supercapacitors and things like that. Tesla and the vehicle market, the EV market, and all the open source information that is shared through the automobile world is going to really drive the chemistry profile of residential batteries forward. The opportunity for bidirectional charging that Ford and Rivian are talking about doing, that in conjunction with all the advancements in inverter technology. You have like Solar Edge, and Solarc is mainstreaming the DC coupled options so much that it pushed Tesla into the DC coupled space with Powerwall Plus. There's a lot that's happening because of the dollars that are going into the consumer market and the utility market, right? Just looking at the utility scale demand for energy storage, we now have utility scale contracts that are coming in cheaper than fossil fuels. and that at the multi-megawatt storage capacities is going to push the envelope, further, I think, than the residential space. I think the residential consumer market is like a really good one, but the commercial and utility scale stuff is really going to propel things forward, because you have like Bitcoin mining, for example, that's being done off grid, and there's so much that's happening at the larger utility scale demand for power. And like I worked for that installer in Colorado that I referenced, and I quoted this Puerto Rican billionaire built 8 little houses at 9,000 foot elevation in the mountains outside of Telluride. And just the solar and the energy storage alone was $1.3 million. It was a 100 kilowatt system with 250 kilowatt generators that were there for backup. And I modeled through Homer, which is an energy modeling software that was developed at NREL. I modeled lithium, and I modeled lead acid, and we modeled those 2 battery profiles. And as much as the lithium was going to beat the lead acid profile for cost and depth of discharge and all of that, Princeton was the company that we were going to do the 250 kilowatt inverter with, 250 or 300 kilowatt hours of energy storage. And even as badass and sexy and streamlined as that looked, the installers still went and installed 32 Outback 8 kilowatt Radiant inverters and 2 walls of lead acid batteries, because that's what they knew how to do. And it's like, even if new shit comes out, you have the installer market that's already tooled to do the old shit. And even if the new shit's available, who knows if it's even going to be adopted?
Right. Yeah. That's
Eric,
similar
to.
Go
ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say, similar to, for example, solar tiles, but the crossover with that is that the roofers should be able to know how to figure that out. But that's a really interesting point. It's like there's this crazy new technology comes in, but because maybe there's additional training or maybe even licensing or something different, and the installer, the contractors that are available just aren't comfortable doing it, it holds back the technology. It's a good point. But what maybe it's up to the manufacturers to try to fit it into the current infrastructure, so it's not as much of retraining or new type of equipment that's needed. But then again, that'll cause limitations. But that's a really good point. How long ago was that though? Because I'm sure they're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, that installer, that guy ended up selling his company to his lead installer, and I'm pretty certain that those guys are evolved more now. And that was 2019 that took place.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Eric, speaking of newer technology, California has this big adoption of time of use batteries that becoming the normal, in homes. That was in Hawaii first, right? Or is that something that just started because of NEM3 in Cali? Tell me more about that, and also any other technology battery on the forefront.
No, TOU's been here. On the I don't run across it that much. It's the cost of power in Hawaii is the highest in the country. It's not tiered. It's just you're paying a kilowatt hour rate for 1, or you're paying a kilowatt hour rate for 3,000. It's the same rate. The TOU customers that I've come across, I mean, there's when you compare it to what California's doing, there can be real incentive there to structure a system that works within the TOU confines. And I think it's so important, and this is, I think, across the board, kind of piggybacking on what Ahmad said, is the inability or the lack of desire for installers or salesors or anyone to kind of just take what's in front of them, take what's out, that's coming, and actually adapt to it and want to learn about that and learn how to install that and sell that and everything else. Because it's the same thing with when you transition from a one-to-one net metering to something else, or something less, I should say, is we made so many mistakes out here thinking that, I'm just going to call it the equivalent of NEM 3.0. I mean, it's the same thing. When we made our transition, we just thought, hey, we'll just design the system, we'll install the system the same way we always did, but we're going to add batteries. That's because you need batteries. But in doing so, we left so much on the table as far as efficiencies and production and everything else, just based on like, hey, this, and this is what you learn sitting here 8 years later, is that it requires a complete shift in mindset. And kind of, so the same thing with the installers wanting to use, older technology. It's kind of the same thing on the sales side, is you really have to say, hey, we got to take the playbook that we've known for the last decade or two, however long we've been in solar, and throw it in the trash and be willing to say, hey, I don't know the most efficient way to do this right now, but I'm going to learn. Because, it went through several stages. When we first started, when that transition happened, we made those mistakes, and you lose a lot of face with the customer because, the customer expectations weren't met. And then you kind of transition, and it just takes you a while. And so what you're doing is you're constantly, it's a step back, 2 steps forward, step back, a couple steps forward, maybe 2 steps back. And it's just this, it was all based around the same idea, is that we didn't know what the hell we were doing. We were trying to figure it out in real time. We had Tesla engineers basically come out here and embed themselves in our company. We were learning in real time the same way they were. And if I could go back now, 8 years ago, I'd have a whole different mindset, because everything that you knew, you kind of have to scrap. And the talk tracks are different. The value propositions are different. The installation techniques are different. How you communicate that with a customer in simplistic terms is different. It's just a lot of difference that all goes around. I think I probably got way off track on this question, but if we want to pull it back full circle, I think, and I don't know exactly what it was again, but I think what we're going to see here moving forward, and I think Ahmad touched on it as well, is, you see like LG leaving the panel game. They're just going towards storage. They're devoting their energy and their resources into storage. It's really the future. I mean, California is the largest solar market. That fell. There's Florida, there's Texas. Those are going to fall. They're all eventually going to end their net metering programs. And there's going to be an explosion in battery where we need more batteries, and we need new advanced technologies. And I guess what I'm looking at is, when we first started, we had the Tesla version 1. That's what we sold. I think it was 6.4 kilowatts, ran around $6,800, $7,000, somewhere there. When you look at price points of batteries, it's coming down. Like when they rolled out the Powerwall 2, that was really, the cost was more, but it was double the capacity. The cost per watt just went way down. And now they're rolling out Powerwall 3. We just started a couple of those, and we just started selling those. But there's always new technology. You have to change. You just have to stay on top of that, and continue to move forward and progress.
Go for it, Ahmad.
Well, you guys mentioned, thanks, Erik. It's cool to hear your longevity of like everything you learned all the time that you spent here. One question we didn't really touch on, which is the programs, right? The tariff programs. And one program that was enacted here a little over a year ago that's going to come sweep the nation is grid support services, right? So it's committing your battery backup to the grid. And Swell Energy, it's a case study, you can look them up. They came in and they pioneered a tariff program with Hawaiian Electric. And Hawaiian Electric, the way I understand it, I don't know the details because I wasn't on the inside, is they took that program where Swell was going to essentially give people batteries at a massive discount, because they were going to sell the energy in those batteries during on-peak hours to the utility company. They were going to share those profits with the homeowner. So you have net metering, one-to-one net metering, which is just blind to usage and completely on the cycle of nature, right? We're going to dump energy onto the grid during the peak of the day when everyone's at work. And then when everyone gets home, now we're putting the stress back on the grid. And we're going to expect the utility company to just be happy about a retail one-for-one credit, right? Not knowing that intermittent renewables, solar and wind, are putting huge stresses on the mechanical power of the utility infrastructure. So when there's a spike in demand, but the intermittent renewable isn't there, the diesel generators and even nuclear or any other kind of power source that the utilities operating, it's not quick enough to spool back up. You have analog power, which is like steam and diesel turbines, and you have digital power, which is sine wave inverter energy from solar. And so you have these two different types of power that you have to reckon with how to smooth that out. And so they came up with the battery bonus program and grid support services, consumer grid support services. And what you're going to see is intelligent microgrids where transformers are installed to be able to feather the mix of utilities on the grid so they can actually push a button, and for everyone who has a battery that's committed to this program, they can deploy the energy in those batteries between 6 and 8 p.m., for example, when they know there's no solar being generated, but there's a peak in demand. And it's really only for a couple of hours because in Hawaii, there's like no nightlife. That was one of the main things I like noticed here is like pretty much everyone's like crashed out by 7 or 8 p.m. because they were like surfing and working and they're like going to get up and go surf early in the morning. And so like, yeah, there's this huge demand between 6 and 8 p.m. and like, how do we get that energy? And so now people are being incentivized up to the tune of thousands of dollars per Tesla Powerwall, essentially get a third of your battery cost covered by the utility company to commit that battery to the program and have them be able to discharge it. And then you are selling energy back to them where they're draining the entire capacity of the battery between 6 and 8. And then if the grid goes out, they're obviously not going to be drawing energy out of the battery, so you still have backup power. But it's actually a really terrible deal because there's still a lot of things that need to be ironed out with how the homeowner is able to prioritize the energy going into their house during the day and going into the battery to be able to discharge that battery so that in the middle of the afternoon, when maybe it's a little cloudy and they want to run their air conditioner, if the utility company wants to drain that battery at 6 p.m., if people are in that program, they can't even access the battery until the utility company gets to it first. So now you have solar and batteries, but then you could be stuck with paying the time of use because now there is time of use here in Hawaii. And so they've like, it's adding solar in the most solarized state per capita in Hawaii has been the most volatile, damaging thing to do to the infrastructure because you have up to 50% capacity of solar generated during the middle of the day on an infrastructure that's drastically under-resourced. It's one of the dirtiest electrical grids in the country. And then you have all this intermittent renewable that they have to figure out how to scale up and down. And it's a nightmare. And so they're doing anything they can to incentivize people to commit their energy and their batteries to the grid. I think it's going to end up being a really good thing. And it's an incentive for people to get batteries because, you know, if they don't need the power during the daytime while the solar and the grid is on, then they're getting subsidized by the utility company to have energy storage so that it does cover them when there's a backup. And that's like really why I'm in solar, is to like give people energy independence, as I said. And that's one of the greatest things that net metering will be doing for net metering 3.0 will be doing for people in California, is it will shift the mindset that people should be responsible for having their own energy backup. That's just like what's happened in Australia. Everyone has batteries and it's just the norm.
And on the topic of like how sales and front-end customer interaction change, Eric, you said we literally need to start thinking about solar as a different thing. whenever this conversation comes in, batteries immediately come into play, time of use. But one thing that is sorely lacking, at least for me, I don't see it being talked about a lot, is customer education on self-consumption and how massively, it's just, where is that conversation? That was part of every single script in Australia. But then you tell a US and American sales guy about, hey, but instead of the way I explain it is, in the US right now, solar is being sold as a magic pill, right? 1-to-1 net metering, customer doesn't have to do anything. They install, they're good to go. And so the salesperson puts all their value in being able to offer the customer a magic pill. Hey, swallow this pill, Mr. Customer, you're good to go. But instead, that's not actually solar. Solar is a tool, right? And so there's a big difference between selling solar as a magic pill and a tool. And the analogy I came up with is, look, you can go to Home Depot and buy a hammer, but no one is going to expect to buy a hammer and then just chuck it at the lawn and all of a sudden a shed is built. But that's how we're currently selling solar, right? In Australia, we would go do walk arounds customers' properties and give them usage schedules and timers and like really educate them on, hey, power during the day, let's use, right? But then when that metering gets killed, the Americans are, no, we can't do this anymore. And the batteries come in, but there's just no conversation about self-consumption education. Why is that?
No, that's a big question. And this just kind of goes back to, I think, what I was touching on earlier about mistakes we made here, mistakes that I see being made in California, nothing malicious. It's more ignorant. And, just kind of pulling it back a little bit, for when the NEM program ended out here, I would estimate for a year and a half, when you'd walk into an appointment, you, as a salesperson, you'd be talking to the customer and the question always comes up, can I get into that old program? Is that still open? Can I slip in the back door? Because everyone knows what's coming, and that's these batteries and that, 30, 40, 50, 60% increase in the cost of your system. And so everyone, so I would estimate for 18 months that was one of the first questions out of the customer's mouth was like, hey, is there any back door into that program? And, I think moving forward, what I always tell people is there's really two learning curves, right? It's like, we're in the industry. We talk this talk every single day. We understand, it's still new, when batteries are introduced, it's still new technology to you. But as much as we talk about it in the sales meetings that we have, and as much time as I spend with installers learning about it, no one's really talking to the customer, and that's the other learning curve. And, so for those 18 months, nobody was in on that learning curve. And then as it progressed, now I walk into an appointment and they're like, how many batteries do I need? Like, we've saturated that. We're on the downside of that curve. And Hawaiian homeowners, for the most part, I would say predominantly, they understand the need and requirement for storage. What it really boils down to, and what selling NEM, what you never had to consider before, is kind of what you alluded to, Josh, is how homeowners are using their energy, and what I do on what we figured out is like, listen, this conversation has to take place. Like, people have to start understanding how they're using their energy so that they can more, better use this a tool that we're giving them. And, and it takes a while. Like, the day that I leave that contract signing, I'll tell them, like, this is going to take you 3 to 4 months to grow into, because it's not really until you start, when you're hooking up your CTs and you see consumption monitoring and you actually start realizing what you're, because that's something you never have, right? Everyone, when we talk about monitoring in NEM, it's production, and you just see your solar curve. When you start talking about monitoring for non-NEM systems, it really is about customer usage. And I would say 95% of homeowners don't understand how they're using their energy. They don't even consider it. It's just, they come home at night, they turn on their utility, and they do whatever they do. They live their lives. With net metering, you never had to think about it. But I think one of the biggest transition points is understanding and educating the homeowners on consumption. And, I just have a program that I developed a program that I use where it's like, 2-3 months down the road, I come back to the homeowner, we sit down, we start taking a look at their monitor, and we start taking a look at their production, their consumption, their usage, everything about that. It's holistic approach. And it's then, because it doesn't matter how much you talked about it beforehand. It's not until they're looking at it in real time and they start understanding it, where that growth starts happening. And it's one of the things, that is most lacking is, and I'm just going to wrap this up, my piece here is the solar industry spends so much time trying to understand net metering 3, okay, or understanding what we went through as net metering 3 in Hawaii. And nobody's paying attention to the homeowners. That is, this is common language. Like the vernacular that we use is everyone understands it within the industry. When you're a homeowner standing on the outside where they spend zero time thinking about this stuff, this is completely foreign to them. And if you can't articulate that well, and if you can't break down these concepts into simple, easy to understand terms, you're just going to get run over. And I've seen it. A lot of companies, a lot of salespeople they struggled through that transition, and you're seeing it in California too.
And by the way, any salespeople watching this, I mean, I've said this a million times before, but anyone that needs to hear this, when you hear this type of language, we have to tell the customer about usage and like self-consumption. That sounds like a pain in the ass. I found the exact opposite. What
True.
I've actually found is that customers love having some sort of control over this upside. So with net metering, it's like, cool, here's solar and you're done. But without it, when you go, hey, Mr. Customer, this is a tool and this can be used properly or improperly. What I've actually found, you can use that as a positive, and they enjoy now having some sort of control over their situation and to better their situation if they try harder. If you tap into that sort of, psychological thing of, look, I don't have any control over my life, but now I have a tool, and okay, I'm gonna change some things, some usage patterns here, and it's an enjoyable process for them, and you can sell them on that. And I've seen customers like brighten up when I start explaining usage patterns and self-consumption. I'm like, oh really? Maybe what if we do this over here? And like they get into it, right? They involve themselves into it. So it can be a positive in the sales process. It doesn't have to be a negative.
I mean, it's absolutely a positive. And kind of just what you said, you're educating them. On selling NEM, it's not until you're not selling NEM anymore where you realize like so many of those talk tracks that you used were just inaccurate. But, one of the biggest things we talk about with solar is control, right? It's control over your utility costs. It's control, it's predictability. It's these types of buzzwords that we use. And it's not until you're no longer selling NEM that you realize, that wasn't really accurate. But now, kind of, Josh, just, piggybacking on what you said, now you actually can have control of that. You can, make small, slight adjustments to how you use your utility, where you can make that tool that you use on your roof the most efficient as possible. And it really does just comes down, it's kind of what I talked about. Throw the old playbook away, look to the future. Like, what are my new value propositions going to be? And now when you're starting to introduce these value propositions, they're actually real. It's like we talk control when we're talking NEM. Hey, you want control, you want predictability. And then you realize that you have very little. And but moving into the new stage, into this new era, I think, that is a conversation that absolutely has to take place with customers. And it's not scary. Like, it's value. Like, I tell people this all the time. As easy as net metering was to sell, there's no way that I would want to go back to it. The value that storage adds to these systems, it's insurmountable. It's exponential. Like, what you used to say as compared to what happens in the reality of today, it's not the same. It's not the same game anymore.
Can I give a piece of value nugget?
Go for it.
Right on. Yeah, because just to play off of what the man was saying, the value, right? Like, it's such an opportunity. I agree that I wouldn't want to go back to just this one-dimensional net metering conversation, because I started to be disenchanted by the value of selling somebody $10 a month, $30 a month in energy savings. mean, even $50 to $100 a month in energy savings. Like, that's kind of boring for me. I would rather give somebody more value and sell them a finance payment that's $100 more a month than what they were paying before. Because look at the stuff that people spend money on. If you add up all your entertainment subscriptions and your home security and your pest control, just all these things that make your home like a habitable place to be. What good is any of that if you don't have electricity, right? And so like then you're selling value of intelligence in how they interact with their home, and you have the opportunity to upsell more efficient things like, you know, maybe they have a room that's too hot in the summertime. Maybe they could use some insulation in that attic because they only have R19 or R38. Like maybe you can add some insulation, some radiant barrier, attic fans. Maybe they need a new HVAC system. Maybe they don't have air conditioning. Maybe they need a mini split in that one side of the house because the ductwork sucks. And it was like a remodel or an extension. Now, like looking at the way people experience their houses gives us an excuse to sell them a payment that's more than what they were spending before. And that's where we can really start to bake in commissions that like aren't putting us up against some other solar proposal that doesn't consider any of this other stuff. People will spend more money if they have more perceived value, and they're going to have a better experience because of it.
A line I always like to use to freak the Americans out that aren't used to this type of selling. So in Australia, we only had 5-year finance terms, right? So we never sold savings. And the line I always use is solar does not have to save someone money for them to really want it. And the amount of like confused faces I get whenever I say that line, like, what do you mean? It's like, you don't understand your product if you think that it has to save someone $50 a month from day one. You just clearly don't understand what solar is offering to your customer if you need that. Wild.
But
100%.
Speaking of financing real quick, is that with net metering, I've noticed in the California market, it's been a huge PPA swing, especially with escalators and, you know, whatever it takes to get the homeowner making numbers make sense, even though that's not how we're supposed to be selling it, but that's what reps do, right? They focus on what the numbers are going to look like for the homeowner. Is that a thing in Hawaii too with PPAs, or is it more just regular financing? And why do you see it happening in California? Ahmad, one go first.
I do a lot of leases. Leases are great. You look at like the state tax credit, 35%, or depending on the system size, you have 30% federal tax credit. You know, plus you have energy storage, finance charges. By the time you get done with that job, a lot of people don't have the tax appetite to be able to like recognize, a payment, to be able to show them what the amortization payment is going to be. And so there's a huge opportunity to, convert somebody into a lease. Home values out here are already insane anyway, so I don't really sell solar increasing home values as part of like the benefit or not of doing a lease or a loan. And, there's like Sonova is a great lease offering. There's a lot of other really cool third-party ownership options that are coming to the table that I know of and I'm hearing about. And I think that like the third-party ownership model is vastly underappreciated when it comes to making the numbers pencil and giving somebody a product that they're going to understand moving forward. Because, giving somebody a huge amount of unsecured debt is sometimes like that's what it takes to get the job across the finish line, is not having that show up on their credit report.
What do you think, Erik? Do you agree?
Yeah, it's I think there's a combination of leases, financed options. I'm predominantly cash, and or same as cash, and I build the value, I articulate the value, and I think when I compare it to what is happening in California, and I think a lot of places around the United States, it kind of, Joe, what you alluded to, it's almost become the default mechanism. Like, it's the savings, it's the no out of pocket, it's these unique loans where, zero down, it's just you're saving $30, whatever it is, it's, the dealer fees. These are just words that I hear commonly when I'm discussing solar with California or Texas or these places. And I've always just kind of really advocated for, listen, you can continue to do that. You can continue to sell in savings. And exactly what you said, Joe. We understand that that's not how we're supposed to be selling. But when a homeowner's dealt with 7 other companies and they're all just, you're all just like cutting each other's legs out a little by little, right? Race to the bottom. Like, how quickly, I'll make them a $45 a month savings, whatever it may be. I always tell those guys, I say, why don't you just make the effort to try to sell a cash deal? Because when you sell cash, you actually have to speak about value. You have to position value in a way where a customer is like, yeah, this is worth me going to my credit union and taking out a $50,000 loan. And then we do have, there's some, I do most of my financing when I have customers who go financing. I use local credit unions. They offer unique details. The dealer fees are low. Most homeowners on Maui they know of these credit unions. They're on the corners. I think Hawaii, probably more than anywhere else I've ever sold, it's really an ohana. I mean, coconut wireless, right? It's like, people get accustomed to hearing about things through the coconut wireless, their friend, their neighbor, their brother, their coworker, whatever it may be. And once they're introduced to a concept, it's in my estimation, and when you position things correctly, it's very easy to go in there and position value. And so, yeah, I mean, leases are a thing. And I think kind of what Ahmed said, some people don't have the tax appetite. These systems are expensive. Like you're talking $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 if, battery storage is required plus, right? And, so you're talking $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 worth of incentives coming their way. How can they structure that in a way where this makes sense, or or does a lease make more sense? So I think it's very customer centric. I provide the options. I don't lead with a lease. I lead with cash. Most of the time I end with cash. But when I tell them, I'm like, listen, I have financing for you. There's a dealer fee attached to it. It's X%. I'd always recommend trying to find your own financing as well. And we can do cash or same as cash. And I let them do it. It kind of separates the, hey, is this person serious, or are they just like kicking my tires? And when they do a little legwork on their own, that's when I know that we're in a good place.
Just want to make
sure.
sure.
Tangent.
Go ahead, Josh.
Oh, go for it. I was going to say a little side tangent. Hawaii is known as the cool, chill out state. Does that affect sales culture, like customer mentality and sales rep? Like, is it difficult to get people excited and like grind and hustle, or is that just bullshit?
I'll compare it to when I was selling solar in California. I mean, there's a big chill factor here. But I would argue against. I don't think it's people respect value, and I think that transcends any state boundaries. If you can position things in the correct way, it's not difficult to get past those roadblocks.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've seen like horrible reports from homeowners that just like, yeah, the guy never called me back.
Yeah, true.
And it is like, there's number one, the sales guys here don't get paid very well compared to the mainland. And it's just like some bummy side job so they can like not have to work normal hours and still serve. And there's like a lackadaisy approach to what a lot of people are here doing, which is their vacation home from, their mainland high-paced lifestyle, and they expect like high-paced, high-quality service. And there's a lot of slacking in the building department and some of the other local talent and workforce of, making errors on utility applications and things taking way longer than you would ever let slide on the mainland. But we did have a quick connect program, and we were able to get utility company approval pre-signed. And I'm lobbying to get that back because I don't know, I'm sure Eric knows that the utility company quick connect was a huge opportunity. And also another little caveat that I'll just share the bone with you on is you can get jobs installed without a building permit and do it after the fact and just pay the fine, which is only $575. So like between a couple of those things, like there are ways to get jobs installed here, like rapid glass to roof, but a lot of the contractors are just kind of like lazy, or they don't know about the loopholes, or they don't want to do it. And one company had like VAs filling out the utility company applications, and you get a 15-day penalty for every error. And they like spelled the customer's name wrong. That's a 15-day delay just on the utility application. And so there's,
that happens everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's interesting about permitting. In Australia, we have pre-approvals, so you can get a utility permit approval in 20 seconds. That's definitely something that I'm waiting for in the U.S., but it is complicated. So you guys had one in Hawaii for a bit?
There was a quick connect for the utility company, but not for the county permit, not for the electrical permit.
Oh, okay.
And so, but you can do an after the fact and just pay the fine, which is only a couple $100. So anyways, yeah, there's some things that like, there's more market penetration per capita of solar in Hawaii compared to the mainland, but there are jurisdictions in the U.S. mainland that are way ahead of where things still are in Hawaii because of the way things are here. Like Maui's drastically underdeveloped because the building department intentionally keeps things on a slow snail pace.
Yeah, and I think exactly what he said. The Quick Connect program that they released, it was during the COVID days where up until that point nothing was automated. Like the permit, nothing was automated. So it was handheld papers that you'd have to go in, and then obviously when COVID hit, everyone got freaked out about like handling papers from somebody else, so they moved it online, and then they released this Quick Connect program, which exactly what Ahmad said. It was the exact opposite of everything we were used to. It was you had utility approval when you submitted an application. I think there's pros and cons to it. More pros, but it's definitely those type of programs. And our electrical permit isn't bad. I would say on average, I can usually get a permit in seven days. If it's just a pretty cookie cutter job, if it's pretty detailed, multiple, ground mounts, those sort of things, then you need actual building permit. But there's room to grow for sure. Exactly what Ahmed said. I think Maui and Hawaii is starting to progress, the ball rolling towards automation, and that'll help tremendously.
Well, I'm going to piggyback off that, since both of you have same experience of moving from the mainland to Hawaii. So if somebody's thinking right now, you know what, that sounds kind of good. Let me move to Maui. Let me sell solar and battery with Ahmad and Maui Solar Guy. What kind of advice? What are the real pros and cons of, going to Hawaii and selling solar and battery there?
Well, I think it's unique here, right? Like, there's some larger companies that are starting to make, put a footprint out here, and they're coming out, and there's something, and I kind of referenced it earlier. It's Ohana, right? There's this natural tendency to stay away from large mainland companies in general. But I would say, as a salesperson coming here, every people who are embedded into this industry out here, I've been selling NEM3 for 8 years, the equivalent of an M3 for 8 years, you're going to have to come out and compete with salespeople who are accustomed and are articulate and know how to position these talk tracks when, you're still making the airs in California. And, you're having a hard time, transitioning in California. Now you're coming out here to where the main base is already very well versed in these new technologies. And I think there is some barrier to entry there. It's wide open. We have the highest utility rates in the country. We have a great state incentive. So there's value that you can add, but it is, I think, the uniqueness coming out here without training and just thinking that it's the same thing, and that I can parlay those high rates and that great tax incentive into a lot of sales. I think that people have tried, and there's success stories, but you really have to, it's got to be a full-time, full steam ahead. I'm putting my nose to the grindstone and really going to learn this, because you're already behind, and you can come out here and catch up, but there's people like Ahmad. There's just dozens and dozens of salespeople out here who are very well versed in this technology already, and the homeowners, like I said, that learning curve is also on the downside. They're well versed. So if you're out here and if you don't know what to say, and if you're articulating things incorrectly, and if you don't know how to position those things, and worst case is you sign them up, you got the signature on the contract, they move forward, and then, the system is not what you told them it was going to be. Their value is not what you told them it's going to be. That's usually when, people, the rubber hits the road.
Joe, I've got a theory, because by how Eric's just saying, it's like, look, it's not going to be a smooth ride. My theory now is actually, because Erik said he would never trade his life for anyone. My theory is this whole thing about Hawaii being difficult, and it's all a facade, and it's actually a super easy market, and you can sell solar on the beach and just chill. And
yeah, I was actually going to speak to that. Can I get my version of that question?
Go for it.
Yeah. So what do you got? Are you gonna say the same stuff? Oh, it's difficult. Don't come here.
No, Josh and I are on the same wavelength. Yo, go to maui.starpower.network. Join my team. I will help you find an apartment. You can live on any island. Let's go smash this thing. You don't have to know anything. I will help you mentor every single deal. You probably know most and all the solar guys on Maui already, except for Erik over here. And because I've seen people give stupid presentations and proposals. I see all kinds of systems already that are misquoted, not enough energy storage. And so if you watch this presentation, you already know more than most of the people on Maui. So get over here.
That's a true story. That's a true story.
Yeah, Ahmad took a totally different approach there. I like it.
Apartments on Oahu are cheap. There's $75 round trip flights to any island. We'll go stack appointments for you on the big island. I have roofers. I got solar installers. Let's do this.
How does that work, though? Honestly, you can go to any island and you can just bounce from island to island. And how do you do carpools? How do you?
I told you, Joe, they don't door knock; they boat knock. They just boat around and go to appointments.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's so many people just renting island cruisers for $20-$30 a day. Just go rent a bike and just go pedal around some neighborhoods and go knock down 5-10 deals, and then go take a flight to Bali. You're already halfway here. Come back, sell some more deals next month. Let's do some sprints.
Love it. Josh, you're frozen over there.
What else?
Hey. Go ahead.
I'm back. Yeah, well, so we got pros and cons. I guess maybe last thing I've got is in general, we've been talking about a lot similarities between old markets, looking into the future, having a crystal ball, being able to see potentially what's going to happen in the mainland because of other markets. What do you guys think are the most exciting trends whether it's in Hawaii or mainland market for next year or the years to come? Like, when you look at it, you're like, oh, damn, that would be cool if that actually happened. What are your top 2 or 3? Go Ahmad first.
So most exciting trends that I see coming are wrapping solar and other home improvements into secured lending, meaning solar mortgages. So with home values, home equity lines of credit, like Erik was talking about credit unions, but solar mortgage lending, selling solar when you sell the house or when you buy the house. That for me, I think is one of the most exciting trends. Wrapped EV sales with energy storage and solar, just these larger home automation, smart home bundles. I think that's going to be huge. And then also like AI assisted sales. And I'm aware of a couple different people and platforms doing some crazy stuff with AI. And I think it's going to improve efficiencies from the operations and install side all the way through the client education and lead nurture side. I mean, there was one company at SolarCon this past year that is doing AI messaging. And, there's just like the AI trend and how it's going to impact home services and construction in general is just going to be mind blowing.
I might know someone doing a really cool AI project for solar cells right now as well.
Mm-hmm. Hint, hint.
Top secret right now. We'll
Yeah.
see. Nice one. What about yourself, Mr. Thor, the Mountain, Game of Thrones?
The Mountain. No, the trends that are coming, they're probably that I'm most interested in are mostly here, but I think it's solar tile roofs. That's just starting to make penetration here. I think that's going to be a big wave when that really picks up. And there's a lot of regulation issues, electric code issues, these sorts of things. But I could see that eventually just becoming the new normal. Solar windows, solar, just adopting, Hawaii has so much sunlight, and portions of California and other parts in the United States are the same, where you're just talking immense amount of sunlight, and removing, if an objection is aesthetic, removing that aesthetic where you're adopting this technology, where you're making the whole home like almost a living, breathing organism. It's generating what you need. It's closed loop. You're storing what you need for the night. And then in addition to just the home automations, I think community solar is. I think there's a lot of room to grow right there. Confined spaces, but just adopting the a larger scale community program. I think that for as long as I've been in the industry, you hear about it, you see it in some cases on a really small kind of isolated basis, but I could see that easily becoming something that becomes a norm, and people can take advantage of that.
I love it. Joe, you got anything else for these boys before we hit our final one here?
Yeah, so we're gonna right before we do our final, we're gonna do a quick segment with you guys, and we'll let you guys go. Before that, I want to give you guys a couple of plugs. So Ahmad, I know we talk a lot, and you are doing your solar franchise system. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you're looking for in prospects?
Yeah, for solar people, we have a system for solar team leaders and managers to literally get paid to flood you and your team with appointments. So we have a solar franchise system. We incentivize the roofing HVAC companies to invest in a solar franchise. And the result of that is an overflow of interested prospects who we know have done business with our partners in the past. And so for people that are sick of different marketing programs and trying to pay for leads and running out of marketing budget, hitting the wall and trying to figure out door knocking, we can actually help you guys get paid to receive appointments. And I know it sounds pretty crazy, but just inverted the entire business model of how to scale a solar business. And so that is applicable to people in the solar industry as well. If you're a home services contractor in solar roofing or windows, home improvement. So that's what I'm up to. And that's what my 8-figure exit's going to be all about.
Hell yeah. And you can trust this guy. He's one of the smartest guys I know. Obviously, if you guys can tell from this podcast alone. But Mr. Maui Solar Guy, Erik Thorbjornsen. I'm going to get it right, I promise you. You did an amazing training, great feedback at SolarCon, and you're doing an amazing NEM3 training. Can you tell us a little more about that, and how can people get it?
Yeah, of course. I think when the buzzwords started happening around, California was going to end their net metering program, I started basically screaming to anyone who would listen on the mainland that it's not the death of the industry. There's going to be some setbacks, and there's going to be we're going to have to take a step back collectively, but it's not the death. And kind of what Ahmad and I have shared today is, there's actually more value with an M3 product than there's ever been with solar prior. And, you don't have to sell in savings. Exactly what he said. You can sell at a price that might be a little more per month. I'm predominantly cash, so, they're eliminating their bills. But, what I've put out is we've created a training program for California solar companies on a B2B basis, where we have hours of online tutorials that, it basically it indoctrinates them into the new mindset that is required for selling NEM3. We have real live homeowner scenarios where we go through and we discuss and we train on what needs to be extracted from a customer that was never required prior. We have this customer guidebook that we created. It's about 30 pages long, and it's really to tackle the other learning curve that I kind of broached earlier, is the homeowners. This is new language to the solar industry. It's foreign language to a large percentage of California homeowners, and soon to be Texas and Florida and all the other ones that are going to eventually end their net metering programs. And then I also provide within that training package a 1 month long coaching session where we're going through like live proposals that these different companies have. And, because I think the feedback that I got from SolarCon and all the follow-up that ensued was there was a lot of good salespeople out there with some, with high integrity, with high ethics, and they were concerned that they were going to go out and inform a client of incorrect, just discussing it in incorrect terms, installing it incorrectly, and just not being able to live up to what they proposed. And it was really a lack of confidence. And so what our training program really looked at is, I've used this mantra. It's what would I have wanted to know 8 years ago that I know today? And we wrote the playbook. We took that old playbook, we threw it out, and we're presenting a new one. And, we're selling it. You can find it on MauiSolarGuy.com, under the solar company section. And, we've had, I think, 8 companies so far sign up. They basically, for their live coaching, they just book an appointment. We do Zoom calls with the entire company, and, everyone gets to listen in over and over and over how these proposals are put together, how much storage is required, how do you differentiate the number of panels from the number of batteries, how do you communicate this to the customer, just all of it. And it's really a process to embolden them and to put more value into their presentations and ultimately to be more successful. And that's about 70 to 80% of what I'm doing. And then I also have a Maui piece where we're trying to change the way that solar is sold here on the islands. And it's kind of a unique perspective. I've seen it done some other places, but it's meeting with customers. And then rather than have them go through 3 or 4 proposals where they don't really know, a salesperson's telling them something different every time, they're getting it from one point of view. I shop the program for them. We collect proposals, and then I sit down and we go through, and they choose which company they want to work with. And they're getting 18 years of experience on my end, and I don't charge them a penny for it. They get to have full autonomy over what company they want to actually choose. And I'm not wearing a company logo on my shirt. I don't have a company business card. I'm actually out there. The way I position it is I've really switched teams. I used to be sitting on one side of the table. Now I turned around and I'm sitting on your side of the table, and we're working on your behalf, to get you the most value out of these companies that exist here on Maui.
And you said it's at MauiSolarGuy.com, right?
Yeah, MauiSolarGuy.com.
Well, I'm glad you went with Maui Solar Guy instead of your last name. That's a lot easier to remember.
That was the reason.
All right, this is our last segment. Josh, kick it away.
All right, so we've talked a lot about changing markets and what a lot of sales reps are doing bad or don't know about what's going to happen with net metering, with changes. So how about let's do this? Can we wrap up? Each of you wrap up, like, if you were talking to a solar sales guy right now in mainland, knowing everything you know and what mainland market's going to change over the next few years, what are the top 3 strategies or preparation strategies that you would tell someone, hey, make sure you're doing this, this, and this, or you're going to get screwed over the next few years?
And we're going to check next year and watch this podcast again to see who wins.
Who was right and the most effective? Let's start with Ahmad. What would you tell a budding solar sales rep in the mainland to prepare for?
Learn the best ways to get organic client acquisition, organic lead generation. Understand the financing world of all of the traditional products, all of the credit union, zero dealer fee, unsecured loans, and all of the secured lending market. Just understand the whole market of financing and TPO, third-party ownership, so that you can have an intelligent conversation about financing across the board, and understand energy storage. Really, because energy storage is going to drastically change the cost of projects. It's going to make creative finance really, really important. And the competitive nature of solar is going to require thinking outside the box with how to get clients without going broke, giving money to the ad platforms or broke radio leads.
Yeah, radio.
Love it. The organic lead gen, by the way, that's my number one for sure. That is, if you can crack that code, you're set for life. What about yourself, Eric?
All right, Eric, you have to have 3 different ones too.
Young kid comes in the office, he's like, I think I'm going to go to the U.S. market, but I don't know what to do. What are the 3 the most important 3 things you tell them?
I think the first one, it boils down to mindset shift, and knowing that every way that you used to sell solar, every way that you've been taught, that that you've learned, that you've read about, that's all going to be changing. Okay, net metering, California, it was Hawaii yesterday, it's California today, it's going to be the rest of the United States tomorrow. They're all looking. California was looking at Hawaii to see, their PUC was looking, hey, how did this work? How did this play out? Then they fell. It's the largest solar market. They're all going to go. And staying in that mindset of like, I'm just going to squeeze out every penny and every deal that I can possibly do right now under this current system, and I'll worry about the next thing when that shows up, you're already behind the game. And you have to get training, you have to get organized, you have to, exactly what Ahmad said, you have to start learning about this technology now. Like, batteries are the future, they're the present and the future. And if you're going to wait on those, you're just going to get left behind. A big piece of advice I would have is www.mauisolarguy.com. We have training programs for B2B, for solar organizations, sales organizations. And I also have like a click and buy for any individual rep. And what it does is it just kind of, it's that quick tutelage about these are the main pain points of the transition. This is how we overcame them. These are the differences in selling NEM versus a NEM 3 type product. Here are the value propositions. Here are the talk tracks. And it really is just an introduction into what you're going to be facing on an everyday basis moving forward.
Love it.
Hell yeah. This has been an
And if you
amazing.
want organic lead generation, go to solarfranchisesystem.com. We'll hook you up.
Say it again, nice and loud and proud, baby.
Yeah, solarfranchisesystem.com. Get paid to get leads.
We'll also put links in the description and
That's a
everything.
pretty good domain. I like that one.
There you go. Beautiful. Love it. You want to take us away, Joe? Thanks for jumping on, guys. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you. Eric, we got to get coffee or I don't surf, so we'll have to figure out something. Go to Yale Valley or.
Are you a golfer?
I used to be.
Well, you can be again. I do a lot of golf. Yeah, let's get together, man. I think, where are you at?
I'm in Haiku, the south of West Bay.
We're probably about 10 miles away. We should, yeah. I'll get your number and we'll get connected.
Yeah, sounds good.
No, and Joe and Josh, I just want to say one more thing too. I haven't really spoken with you, Joe, very much, but I really, much respect for what you and Jake and the other guys and gals have put together with SolarCon, and just really kind of creating a platform for people to get together, connect, learn about new ideas, new technologies, that sort of thing. I think that's needed in this industry. We need more of that. And so big props to you and Josh. Love what you're doing on the podcast and everything else. This is really what, solar industry is kind of under fire right now, just for different reasons. But, we just need good people out there promoting it and showing that it's still here and that there's still a ton of value to be added. Appreciate you guys.
Love the support and I love the value you guys are bringing. Awesome. So guys, you want to reach out to Ahmad, solarfranchisesystem.com. You want to reach out to Erik, go to MauiSolarGuy.com. This has been the Solar Pulse podcast with Josh and Joe. Over and out. Let's go.
See you guys.
Peace. Aloha.
Peace.
Live long and prosper.
Woo.